How's it going, everybody? I'd like to welcome you to another video, but this video is going to be just a tad different than what I normally do. It's not going to be a topology out of the gate. I'm seeing a lot of folks online frustrated with the lack of topic support for firepower threat defense, or Cisco FTD. So what I'm going to go do along with the basics video series and the playlist that I've created on YouTube, I'm going to create a bunch of videos around how to do basic things in firepower threat defense through both the FTD locally managed and through the FTD managed through the Firepower Management Center. This is all going to be done inside of Eve. I've done it inside of VMware a bunch of times. This time I'm going to do it in Eve just because it seems like a lot more people use Eve, and if they have access to the bits and things like that, and you can get them and download them and work with them, that's going to be where we focus our time. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to bring over FileZilla. Now FileZilla is how you would upload anything to Eve that you would want to actually use inside of Eve. So I've already navigated to the folder that has all of the bits that I want. So I've got the FMC, I have the Firepower Threat Defense, and I have the NG IPS. So what I'm going to go do, I've already created one of the folders here. I'm going to walk you through how to actually go through this process. So I'm going to assume, and if you don't know how to use FileZilla and do an SFTP peering, you up here in the host section, you type in the IP address of the file of the Eve server you want to connect to. You specify the SSH root username and the password, and then you put in the port. You put in port 22 if you're going to be using SFTP, which we're going to be doing FTP over an SSH connection, SFTP. Once you do that, then on the left hand side you navigate to wherever your files are that you want to upload, and then on the right hand side this is where you upload your files to. So I've navigated to opt/unet/addons/QEMU, and then I have added this particular instance. You have to make sure that the nomenclature is correct, because if it's not, then it won't show up in Firepower, or I'm sorry, inside of Eve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this guy right here. You'll notice that the hda.qcow2, if you download the qcow2 file from Cisco, which is where I got mine from, I have a service account or service contract and the capability of downloading the code, so that's how I get it. That if you can get it online and whatever, this is just a how to upload and use Firepower. I'm not going to show you how to download them. Now, whatever the file name is that you have on your, when you download it, whatever file name is here, you need to make sure, whatever file name is downloaded, you need to make sure that you swap that out to hda.qcow2, or Eve won't be able to read it. So I'm going to simply drag this over to here, and it's going to start uploading it. Now it is a 2.3 meg or gig file, so it's going to take a couple of, it's going to take a period of time to upload. I'm going to pause the video while it does. Alright, so our file has now been uploaded, so now we have the FMC uploaded. I'm now going to click on the FTD device right here, or FTD folder. I'm going to click inside of it again so that I can edit the file name. I'm going to just copy that, come over here to QEMU, right click and say create directory and enter it, paste that, enter key. And then I'm just going to take this data and I'm going to drag and drop it over here. I'll pause the video. Okay, so now that that one's been done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the NG IPS the same way, but I'm not going to show the NG IPS in any training right away. It's just going to be the Firepower Management Center and the Firepower Threat Defense instances. I'll drag out a couple just so you guys can see how that works. And I'm just going to grab, you'll notice that the file name is different. Actually, that might not be the correct instance name. When you ever run into a situation like that, you might have to modify this. So if you're not sure what this is in this particular case, you can go ahead and open up another web browser, and I will go to eveng.net. Let that load up real quick. So here we have eveng. If we click on documentation, and then you go to how-tos, Then we come down here to firepower 6.x image sets. Then you have to come down to, here is the IPS. So we have to just find the IPS portion of things. And here's the IPS. So we have to, was a VMDK, it's got to get converted from a VMDK to a QCOW2 file. And so what you would do in this particular case is you would need to connect to the device through a PuTTY connection. So you need to do this. Come in here and plug in 42, 422, and then open. That's weird. Oh, you know what? I bet you I know what I did. 22, or sorry, 42, 22. There we go. So now let's type in root and Eve, and then we're gonna drag this off screen over here just a little bit. Drag this down just a bit, and then right here I'm gonna grab, copy, and paste that over here, and actually go back to the beginning of the line, CD. And then in here, and then do ls, we'll see that we actually haven't moved the file yet. So what I'll do is I will go grab this file, I will drag it over to the folder. That'll go by pretty quick. I'll pause. Okay, so the folder has been uploaded. We type in ls again. Now we have the scuzzy.vmdk file in there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and minimize this now, and I'm going to bring this back over. What we need to do is we actually need to convert and move the EVE-NG image to where it's got to go. So I'm actually going to highlight this entire folder length the entire time. I don't know why it doesn't show up. It just doesn't. I'm going to grab Notepad. I'm going to paste that syntax in, and then what I'm going to go, and you can see now that it switches over to a SATA A QCOW2. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to grab this particular line of syntax, and I'm going to paste that right here so that they match. Same thing here. I'm going to do this because it should be, this file name looks a little weird. What I can do is grab, bring this down just a little bit. It's going to be, this is an older image because it says SCSI A. If you're not sure on something, there is always the, let's see, is it the, you go back to the documentation page real quick, and if you click right here, where you go QEMU image namings, if you scroll down to the Firepower 6 for the IPS, it's supposed to be SATA A, and that's what it needs to be. So this looks a little weird, but because we have this VMDK file here, I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to say that it is SATA, or is it SCSI A? SCSI A. It needs to be here. This needs to be SCSIA.vmdk. Needs to be converted to this. So I should be able to just grab this line of syntax, take it over here, and paste it, and hit the enter key. And now it's going to go in ahead and convert. And then once it converts, it'll convert it from a VMDK file over to a SATA A.QCOW2 file. This will take a couple of minutes to do. Once it's done, it should read a SATA.A.QCOW2. I'm going to go ahead and pause while it does this. Okay, so now that we've done that, now it's back to where it needs to be. If we do ls, now we have both file names showing up here. If we pull back the FileZilla client and we do a quick refresh, we should see both sitting in here, which we do. Now we can get rid of this guy. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of him. Yes, that's fine. And then I'm going to actually download this. I'm going to download it so I no longer have to do any modifications. So once this downloads, I'll be able to actually go in here and delete this VMDK file, and then I should be able to launch the IPS capability inside of Eve at a later date. Okay, so now that we have that copied, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the original file here, the scuzzy.a there. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So now we will literally only have the SATA.QCOW2. So now if I decide in the future to try to deploy this again on another platform or on a different instance of Eve or what have you, I have the appropriate files. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and minimize, or actually I'm just going to close this out because I no longer need that. And I'm going to go ahead and close out that browser, and then if I do an ls, we see that we only have the SATA.QCOW2. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out as well. Yes, I want to close that session. So now if I right click here in the middle and go to node and come down here to Firepower 6, I'm going to have Firepower 6 listed. I'm going to click on there, and if we click through here, we're going to have all of the instances that we need. I'm going to click on 6.5 for the FMC. Normally I do the FMC first. It does take a while to install, so when I go to actually install this, it'll take a while to do it, but I'll get that part started with you guys in this video. And then normally, truth be told, I stop the video because it takes so long to install, and then once the install is done and we need to go through the bootstrapping to get it up and running, I start up another video and I just, bring them together. So what I will call this guy is FMC, and the server here, that's fine. Now it's a resource hog. I'll be straight up with you. It's a resource hog. I don't know why Cisco needs to have that many resources, but it does. So 5 Ethernet ports, 1 of which will be management, the other 4 will be for reachability in terms of connectivity to the box and things like that. We only need 1, which is just the Ethernet management 0 interface. And I'm going to go ahead and click on save. So that's going to drop the FMC out here on the network. So one of the first things that we need to do when we get this up and running is I always add a network. So this network, I'm going to come in here and type in as management cloud. I type in mgmt and save it. So this is going to be how we interact from the outside into the FMC and the FTD devices. So I'm just going to connect this guy here. You'll see that we have a number of interfaces. I'm going to click on Ethernet 0 and save it. Now, the way that I normally would do this in terms of how the basic operations of how stuff works is I'm going to come down here to Firepower 6 again. I'm going to hit the drop down arrow to go to FTD. I'm going to call this FTD1, and that's going to be all I need to do. So then what I'm going to also do is I'm going to bring out a couple of other nodes. I will go ahead and bring out a regular router, and this router here, I'm just going to call it R1, and I'm sorry, I'll call this, the prefix will be R, but I'm actually going to put out 2 nodes. So I'm going to do that and then click on save. Now the reason for that is because the first of which this guy is going to act as a node behind the FTD device. This node is going to act as a node outside of FTD. So this will allow me to have just a simple FTD device. I'll be able to interact with it. I'll be able to test out different things like connectivity and things like that. And I'm also going to, when I set this up, I normally will have this set up to where I do something like this. Where I have this cloud here, I'm also going to drag him down here to Ethernet Management 0. I save that, and then I go drag this guy over. This will be, since this is the inside, I will always put this on the gig 01. So 1 is inside, 0 is outside. It just makes it easier to correlate for me. And actually, there's a friend of mine who introduced me to that a long time ago. He goes, I always have the gig 00 interface as the outside interface, and the gig 01 is the inside. 0 for out, I or 1 for in. It just makes sense. Go from there. So that's going to be our simple FTD topology, right? So now what I will do is I will actually come in here and I will add another network, but I'll call this one iNet, and click on save. And actually I need to edit this. This is going to be a management cloud. Now I have a second cloud. You might say, well, why do you have 2 clouds? I simply do the second cloud so I can test things like Google DNS and things like that and stuff like that. So I can test security intelligence and things like that. So I'm going to drag this down here to be another interface. So this will be this will be true internet, but I won't be connecting it to the true internet interface. So I'll click on save for gig 2, and that's going to be how that comes into play. So just so everybody's clear, the reason what I'm doing here is I have R3 is going to be an inside node. So he will be connecting to FTD1. FTD1 will be his gateway to the rest of the world. Pretend like R3 doesn't have any intelligence. But what this also does is this gives me a router to test things like routing configuration. So I can go on the FTD device and I can do routing and stuff like that. I can add loopbacks and on the router to advertise routes so the FTD device receives that, so on and so forth. It gives me a lot of flexibility. Now, one thing that I always do as I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and pause real quick. I usually always pull out a command prompt because I want to ping an IP address to see what IP addresses I can actually associate to the FMC. So I'll ping 10.255.1. Let's say 61. If nothing replies, then I know that's a safe IP address to associate to the management of the FMC. So it doesn't look like anything's going to respond for that one. We'll give it one more timeout. We'll do then .62, and it doesn't look like anything is going to respond to that. Normally it would have responded by now. So nothing's there, so I'm going to go ahead and Control C. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. So I'm going to go do a couple things. First thing I'm going to do is come in here and type in a text box. It's going to be 10.255.1.61 /24. And I'll do this so that I know I have this IP address there. I'll grab another text box, 10.255.1.62 /24. That'll go to this interface right here so that I know what that is. Then I'll come in here and do another text box. It'll be 10.255. In this case here, I'll do a 10.1.3.0 /24. And that'll be this link between R3 and FTD1 so that I know what that's going to actually be. And actually usually just put it on top of the link right there like so. And then I'll grab another one here. I'll type in, this will be 41.0.0.0 /24. And that will be the global address that I use for this. So this will allow me to do a lot of the testing, because right now I'm focused on just one FTD device. I don't need anything extravagant. I don't need 30 devices, anything like that. Now this iNet part, what my goal is with this side, and I can go pull this back up and hit .63, and if that works, then I put 63, so we have that one. Now, because it's a different interface, we won't actually be able to overlap. So now that I'm thinking about that, that's probably not going to work out too well. So I can just delete that for the time being. I don't really need it there anyway. Yes, I want to delete that. Perfect. So now we have our management. I can always use management as our internet routing if we need to, but I'm probably not going to need to do that because of the fact of the way this is all squared away. So the goal here is to test out connectivity onto the ASA or through the FTD device through a variety of different mechanisms. The first of which is going to be, can I do DHCP, and can I test out NAT? Can I test out a variety of other things? So this will allow me to test throughput, the network discovery. I can go and turn the web server on here, and I can create a bunch of URLs and do URL filtering, so on and so forth. And then I can turn DNS on. And so what I really want to do is I just want to understand the platform itself. So now we're towards the end of this video. What I want to go do now is I want to boot this guy up. So to do that, you just right click here, start, and now it's going to start. Now it is starting, it has started. So I'm going to click on this guy, and it's going to open up a VNC connection. So VNC just launched, and now it's launching 6.5. So once it goes through its process, it's going to take a little bit to do it, and once it's done, then we'll be off to the races. At this point in time, I'm going to stop the video as it's going to go through its boot up process and install process and stuff like that. Is a little bit time consuming the first time you go through it. And then while this is going through its process, one thing that I want you to take note on is the status here. Utilization, we're not too bad, right? And that's what I want you to pay attention to. So I'm going to go and get this guy squared away. At some point in the future, I will SSH into each one of these devices, specifically the FTD device. I'll be able to console into that one, and we'll be able to interact with it at the console level, because verification is going to be needed to do at the console level. You really won't be able to do a whole lot of verification through the FMC for the most part. And then what we'll go and do then is we'll work on R3 and R4, get the routing, because I really want to focus on the routing componentry, go through, what are the nerd knobs, what do I need to do to get certain things working, so on and so forth. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, actually one more thing that I'm going to go do is I'm going to add another router real quick. And as soon as it wants to work, there it goes. So I'll add another router, and the router that I'm going to add, the CPU is pretty busy on this box, so go ahead and add the router. It's not liking that. Well, my goal, nothing selected. Yes, I know. Let me go ahead and refresh the page. So if I add another router, node, my goal would be to add another device behind R4. So when it comes time to do site-to-site VPN, there we go. It would go ahead and it would allow me just to test out site-to-site VPN and stuff like that. So and have a node behind the R4, stuff like that. But I'm not going to waste any more time. So if you see another router, a router 5, for example, sitting behind this node, then know what that is. So I'll come back and I'll do that once the FMC is done being installed. But remember, it's going to take a while for all this to happen. And once it's done, it's going through the install process now. I'm not going to make you sit through that, but that's what's basically happening. So once this is installed and operational, then I will bring you guys back in to do the additional steps of how do you bootstrap it and stuff like that. So that'll come here in the next little bit. Until next time, guys. Until I bring the video back in, have a good one. So our FMC has now finished booting and is ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and pull this guy up. I've hit the enter key a couple times just so we can get the login prompt to kick off. So I'm going to type in the username of admin and the password of capital ADMIN123. And here we are. We're dropped off at the config, or at the console. So, but we need to do a few things. So I'm going to go ahead and disappear, and we're going to walk ourselves through the setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a question mark. You'll notice that there is expert here. So you'll have to type in expert, and then we'll be prompted to, we'll go to admin at firepower. Then we're going to type in the next command where we need to go from admin, we need to go to root, or we need to elevate our privilege, which is going to be sudo su. And we have to type in the password here, which is going to be capital ADMIN123. And this is going to drop us into root and the volume home and the admin, which is going to be our current working directory. In order for us to do what we need to do, we need to type in sudo, and then I'm going to type in /usr/local, and then we need to type in, for this particular case, is going to be sourcefire, and then we need to type in configure-network. Sorry, I forgot one. It's going to be bin. Configure-network. And once we type this in, then we'll be able to go forward and hit the enter key. So now it says, do you wish to configure IPv4? Yes. IP address is going to be 192.168.45.45. No, it is not. It's going to be 10.255.1.61/24-bit mask. And then the default gateway is going to be 10.255.1.1. Are these settings correct? Yes, they are. Do we want to configure IPv6? Currently, we do not, but we'll come back to that at a later date. And it's going to go ahead and do all of its configuration that it needs to do. Now, once we have all that squared away, if we bring this back up like we did for the earlier, if we do this -T, momentarily when the configuration is squared away, you notice now that I can ping the FMC. So that will allow me to actually connect to the FMC through the web browser. And that's going to be the next stage that we need to go through. So we can ping it from our PC. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to minimize that for the time being. And at this point in time, we are pretty much squared away. There's not much more we can do from the command line. And we wouldn't do anything from the FMC anyway. This would just be, we'd have to go through the GUI in order for us to do all the stuff that we need to. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go up ahead and pull up Firefox. And Firefox is going to be how we actually interact with the FMC. So I'm going to go ahead and give Firefox a minute to pop up. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and disappear. And Firefox should be squared away. I'm going to go ahead and type in https:// and I'm going to type in 10.255.1.61 and hit the enter key. Now we're going to get a potential security risk. This is due to the self-signed certificate on the FMC. Don't worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and click on advanced. I'm going to come down to accept the risk and continue. And now we are dropped off at the Firepower Management Center. So I'm going to go ahead and type in admin and the well, I was not very smart on that one, and type in capital ADMIN 123 and then login. And then we're going to be presented with a login script that we're going to have to walk ourselves through. So I'm going to go ahead and go full screen with this. It'll take a couple of seconds for this to actually process, and once it's done, we'll be in pretty good shape. So it's going to go ahead and log in. And we're going to have to go through a setup process. So the setup process that we're going to go through is to actually create a new password. So we're going to use the password. It's going to be kind of unique. We're going to type in capital P @ little s $, W0 capital R D. And do the same thing. Capital P @ little s $, W0 big R little d. We're going to click on show password, and that is our password. It's got to be rather extensive. It needs 8 characters, 1 lowercase, 1 uppercase, 1 digit, 1 special character. No more than 2 sequential repeated characters. Passwords must match. So we've got that down pat, right? We're going to click on next. It's going to take a couple seconds for that to process. And then we have to go through the user agreement. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through and click on accept. And then we will be moving on to the next step, which is going to be the initial information. So I'm going to type in the fully qualified domain name. Here is going to be fmc.sn.com. It's going to be a static manual configuration. We are going to go and do the Cisco umbrella as our DNS. So we're going to use Cisco's umbrella, which we will have access to. The default NTP servers, we're going to be using the Cisco NTP servers, and we're going to click on finish. So this stuff right now is going to go ahead and finish doing its installation process, and then momentarily we should be in pretty good shape. So once that's done, we will be able to move into the next stage of our setup, which is going to be to actually work on the FTD device and go through its setup process. So once this is done, we'll be in pretty good shape. I'm actually going to pause the video while this is doing its thing, and once we're all squared away, we'll be able to go ahead and log in. Okay, so we're brought to this page right here, which is Configure Smart Licensing. I don't actually have smart licensing capabilities for this particular implementation. So instead of going through all of this right here, I'm just going to click on the very bottom here where it says Start 90-Day Evaluation without registration. So it'll give me full capabilities to the FMC and an FTD device or FTD devices that are added. And we're going to go ahead and click on Save. And then that will be the next step in the process to get all of this up and running. So right now we are waiting for the FMC to finish its loading process and all that type of stuff. And we'll be in pretty good shape here in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and pause while it does that. So we are fully booted and everything like that, so we're good to go. I'm actually going to go back to Overview, and this is going to redirect us to basically the main dashboard of the FMC, and then that will present us with a dashboard of details that are going to be happening and stuff like that. Basically, it's going to show us a bunch of outputs in terms of what's happening, what the FMC sees, what kind of data does the FTD see. Right now, nothing is going to be there because we don't have any FTD devices joined, which we will be doing it at a later date and time. But for right now, that's going to be how far we can take it for what we have. So we had one failed attempt, no big deal there. And this is going to be our launching page, or when we first log in, this is what we're going to see and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the steps and the initial view that we're going to see when we first log in and get things squared away. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much where I'm going to end this video, and we'll go and take a look at setting up the FTD device in the next video. Thanks for stopping by. Take it easy.